there, people who have access to the internet and who are currently using it to watch this video. My name is Pun Food, or just Pun if you prefer, and last time on Pikmin 4, we did the entire treasure catalog. Now this time, we're doing the piklopedia. I have been looking forward to reading Olimar's notes on these things, but I guess we'll read Louie's notes first. Because, guess so. My voice is still really tired, but let's go. I'm not going to do character voices because that would just hurt my voice even more. For a blissful bisque, mince the entire beast finely and stir in with heavy cream, artichoke hearts, and a pinch of black pepper. Heat slowly until piping hot. Rich and creamy. Peel off the skin, starting at the tail end, then slice thinly and boil in a pot of heavily salted water. Serve immediately. Plum specimens are best spit roasted whole and stuffed with a lime and a slab of bacon. Baste frequently to ensure a magnificently moist haunch. It's a large creature, but the meat is tender and flavorful. It's impossible to eat in one sitting, so store some portions for later. Coat the fatter meat in cooking oil and freeze. Leaner cuts should be smoked. Although difficult to prepare, this exquisite creature is more than worth the effort. Great in fajitas. This bulbor's meaty flanks make for deliciously savory steaks that shouldn't be missed. Remove innards, stuff with sausage, and finely aged prosciutto, and broil until golden brown, the ultimate crowd pleaser. For an unrivaled green curry, peel away the spotty bulbor's skin and pulverize the juicy innards and stew until curiously fragrant. A sweet and savory meat that pairs well with simple green salad. Sear the rich, fatty meat on both sides in a dab of butter, then sprinkle generously with fresh thyme. For those who prefer leaner cuts, I recommend the tip of the nose. No stove? No problem. This sizzling beast practically cooks itself. Remember to thoroughly extinguish the steaks prior to eating. Pat the tongue dry, then coat all sides with spicy, dry rub of your choice. Grill over high heat until the outside is perfectly crisp. This meager creature offers little meat, but its eyeballs are a local delicacy. Try them with okra and a dollop of sour cream. For a sophisticated delicacy, make a pâte de foie gras from this massively obese creature's liver and spread it over a sesame cracker. To prep the tongue for cooking, marinate in olive oil and chop into cubes. Stir in a pot with carrots, potatoes, and chives. Cover and simmer over a low heat for several hours. Accompany this mouth-watering rustic stew with a hearty roll. For a light appetizer, pluck the ferns off its back and lightly cook to remove any astringent flavor. The tongue, eyes, lips, meat, and fat are very tasty and can be prepared in a variety of ways. Mature specimens have a more highly developed umami flavor. Roast this flavorful beast for several hours, letting it stew in its own succulent juices. Don't worry about overcooking this beast. It's scorch-proof. This beast's unrivaled moistness gives it a melt-in-the-mouth quality that's incomparable. Sprinkle lightly with salt and eat while the ice bag is still fresh and crunchy. Just one bite will give you the most satisfying brain freeze. Creature too large to easily carve. Bigger is not better in this case. Oh, okay. Scrape the interior of its elongated nose with a spoon for a quick dessert of meaty shaved ice. Add a drizzle of sesame-grade soy sauce to take it up a notch. Stew with root veggies, wild greens, and a bit of miso for a mouth-watering and rustic flavor. Drain all the blood beforehand to avoid that Grammy smell. Carefully remove every grain of sand, peel back the exoskeleton, and slurp heartily, or deep fry it too. Drop into boiling water and let it cook until the shell turns red. Remove the pot and peel. Sprinkle the drained meat with rock salt. Peel back the shell and sprinkle the tender meat with a dash of salt before slurping it up raw. For a refreshing dessert, pour fruit juice over the snowballs. Boil the meaty legs until fully cooked, then drizzle with a generous amount of lemon juice. Once the juice has seeped its way into the muscle fibers, suck the meat out of the shell with one big slurp. For an unforgettable quiche, slice this creature up and mix with 4 eggs, 2 vine-ripened tomatoes, diced zucchini, and a generous handfuls of feta and Swiss. Bake until crusty and golden. This piece is the most flavorful if caught and cooked just after laying its eggs. Spread several specimens in the bottom of a casserole dish. Layer with sliced avocado and top with cheese. Bake until the meat is cooked through and the cheese is lusciously browned. Best enjoyed when big and round and full of eggs. Salt lightly, then grill, then the squishy, sticky mouthfeel will have you coming back for more. Grate this piece into a zest and whisk with sugar cream and chopped dark chocolate for a lusciously indulgent mousse that's true culinary coup de grace. Grace? Is that coup de grace? Okay. Salty, sour, and sometimes sweet, the flavor changes depending on which living creature it's fed from, most recently. Boil in the shell with a pinch of salt until bright red, then serve piping hot with tartar sauce. Remove shell, roast over a low flame, then grind meat. Whisk paste into olive oil until emulsified. An extra dash of cumin leads to some earthiness to the spicy salad dressing. Remove the wings, marinate a well-marbled steak for several hours in a chipotle marinade, then charboil to perfection. The superb amalgamation of juicy meat and leafy greens ensures that the skitter leaf will be the new spinach. No preparation needed to enjoy this flavorful beast. Its natural crunch gives way to an intriguing mouthfeel. The search for a gourmet, high-protein, salad-topping alternative to bacon bits is over. Grind the spicy dweevil into tiny micro-chunks and toss them generously over your salad to add instant flair and flavor. Raw anno dweevil makes for an unforgettable sushi treat, but if it's not prepared by an expert hand with exact precision, consumption could result in jolting electrical explosion of apocalyptic proportion. Inedible. Effects of consumption include uncontrollable arm flailing and enthusiastic dishwashing. What? Soak the legs in fruit juice and freeze. Serve as a refreshing ice pop. Exposure to even extreme heat doesn't seem to rid this creature of deposits of potent gas. It's probably best for everyone if you avoid eating this hazardous fare. Pluck off the legs, crack open, and savor the meat inside. Dip them in soy sauce first for a nice mix of sweet and salty. Not as tasty as it looks, completely inedible. Although the meat is a bit on the metallic side, the oil makes a mouth-watering gravy or lubricative vinaigrette. This creature is mostly tendon, so it often gets stuck in your teeth. Smells like burnt plastic or possibly metal. Drain the electrical charge before boiling. Although it is possible to eat an anno beetle while it is charged, doing so may result in unpleasant, tingling sensation. An essential flavor for accentuating ingredient in gumbo and jambalaya, also delicious in soups, broths, and marinades. Looking for a flavor that will surprise and delight your guests? This beet's aroma may surprise your guests, but it won't be delightful. This precious tree is exceptionally rare. I could sell it back home for a fortune, then I could use the cash to upgrade my kitchen by galactic class ingredients and even star in my own cooking show, The Insect Gourmet. Flash fry with garlic and red chilies in a hot pan, then sprinkle with grated gorgonzola. Some dinner guests may find the legs unappealing, so it's best to remove them before serving. An acquired taste, but it's really quite addictive once you get used to it. No special preparation necessary. The extremities cannot be used for food, but you can drink the liquid inside for a zesty beverage. Even after draining the mud, its texture remains gritty. Chew it for long enough and your teeth will get a good scrubbing. Remove the wings and drop straight into the deep fryer. Cook until golden or until the enticing aroma starts to sting your eyes. Serve immediately. For a tasty appetizer, dip wings into a batter and fry. It can also be used to season stews and soups. Remember to first remove its bitter innards. Spread larvae on a slice of toast for a spicy and protein-packed breakfast, or fry up the wings at any time of day for a sweet and crunchy snack. Dice finely or puree to make a meaty sorbet. Add a tiny drizzle of fruit sauce for some punch. Pluck the wings and antennae beforehand to use as a garnish if you want to get fancy. When thinly sliced, this predator's sizable bowl makes a sumptuous pizza topping. If you can successfully remove the tongue's poison glands, you'll enjoy a rare opportunity to appreciate the umami synergy of the mushroom and meat combo. Bread bugs are hardy and nutritious, but also bland and unimaginative. They may be palatable in a pinch, but they hold no culinary promise. Although cooking this colossal beast yields a mountain of meat, every ounce of it is flavorless, only suitable for intergalactic all-you-can-eat buffets. Heat the golden crystals on its back until they melt into a caramel sauce. Flip the creature upside down and bake until the skin develops a crunchy candy crust. The meat gives off a faint aroma similar to a hot pepper. The flavor itself is subtle and elegant. Char grill the lantern until blackened, and you've got nutritional superfood. Gently peel the skin back from the nose. Its meat has a grassy bitterness, tastes like cucumber. The bitter flavor fades as they grow, replaced by a sweet, mellow aroma. Stew the base of the trunk, grill the middle, or smoke the tip. The possibilities are endless. Season with salt and pepper, because it's just like an egg, Gently remove the jellied parts. Add fruit and the sweetener of your choice, then serve as a gelatin dessert. Grind up the meat and cartilage, then mold into meatballs. The tender texture of the meat contrasts nicely with the crunchy, chewy cartilage bits. Slice the serpentine torso into thin medallions. Skewer on a metal rod with Hockatate onions and barbecue over an open flame. Breast, thighs, and wings can be baked, roasted, or fried. The rest of the carcass is great for flavoring a rich soup stock. Mate. Okay. What did I press? Okay. Remove the internal meat and place directly on the shell while it's still smoldering to cook. It almost smells better than it tastes. Sauté in butter and cover with a sauce made from the green liver paste. Anyone with a highly developed palate will enjoy the slightly bitter flavor profile. The meat under the icy side of the shell is quite muscular, while the other side is nice and fatty. Two great tastes in one. It's time for water. Okay, flip upside down and cook cap over a charcoal grill, low and slow. Once it starts to sweat, it's ready to eat. Bury underground for about 40 days so the poison can leach out. Its smell will make you gag, but the flavor has notes of chocolate. So, this is the, these are the, taken over by the Toxstool. Pretty cool. Tastes best if eaten just before the meat spoils. Once all the mold has been removed, enjoy a unique flavor reminiscent of dry-aged meat. After removing the poison, the broth is fragrant and savory. Don't drink too much or you'll find yourself crippling with tummy ache. Remove tongue and discard the rest. Cook over a charcoal grill until medium rare. Pan roast the thighs with sprigs of rosemary and whole garlic cloves. Finish with a squeeze of fruit juice to highlight the subtle notes of a lingering electricity. Inedible. Tastes like chicken. Wait. It's inedible, but it tastes like chicken? Also, we don't know what family the mamuta belongs to, so the smoky prog might actually still develop into the mamuta. Interesting. Cut the meat into 4 even slices. Dip slices in a beaten egg, then dredge in breadcrumbs. Fry over low heat. Although the eggs are small, the yolk has a distinctly bold and tangy flavor. Try tossing a few in a pan along with your choice of meat and fresh vegetables. Cook up a country scramble. Slice this creature's feather-light skin into triangles, deep fry until crispy, and salt generously. Makes the perfect scooping chip to accompany fresh mango salsa. Has the consistency of candy-coated chewing gum and leaves a refreshing mentholothed aftertaste. Hang this creature on a rack and sun-dry on a hot afternoon. When suitably crisp, grind the sun-dried beast into powder. Makes a great substitute for curry powder. Similar in taste and texture to the gelatin, this jiggling mass of jelly can be sculpted into all kinds of creative shapes. As a bonus, it also doubles as a professional-grade hair gel. It's the perfect cool summer treat. Like a fine cheese, the aroma of this fluid floater can be oppressive, but its flavor must be experienced to be believed. Also makes an unforgettable non-dairy spread. Walpole. Walpoles can be eaten raw, but they're much more flavorful when steamed or grilled. Also heavenly in risotto. Feel free to experiment with this lush ingredient. Coat in thick batter and deep fry for a down-home flavor you won't soon forget. Lollipops are best ground up, shaped into a patty, and flame-boiled on a grill. Slap on tomato slices, lettuce, onions, and ketchup, then slide the patty between a sesame seed burn for the ultimate beast burger experience. Remove the tender meat surrounding the eyes and stew with soy sauce. The collagen fibers are simply melt in your mouth delicious. Meat can be consumed if first dehydrated with a lot of salt, but the eyeballs and legs are the best parts. Deep fried dumplings without batter for all the flavor with half the fat. Slice raw and serve as sashimi. The marbled fat gives this dish a deep umami flavor. Remove the poisonous internal organs, then slice thinly and serve as sashimi. The firm meat is brimming with umami flavor, pairs well with a light, refreshing citrus vinaigrette. Perfect for make-ahead meals. Marinate in boiled meat in balsamic vinegar and chill for a few hours. The longer you let it sit, the richer the flavor. Throw a mountain of aristocrab offspring into a pot for yummy and simple miso soup broth. Great for a hot pot. Remove the shell, cook legs in hot broth when they turn nice and red. Pull them out and slather in liver paste before eating. Grub chucker. Pluck off the lips and serve with lemon and salt as an appetizer. Coat the arms and legs with plenty of miso for a full course dinner in a shell. Shuck from the shell, bake on high heat until crispy, then dip in a pot of melted milk chocolate, lip-smacking sweet. When grilled, served as an excellent filling for an offbeat po' boy. If you have any leftover, add it to a liver paste to deepen the flavor. The tip of the tail tastes almost fruity with notes of sweet and sour. Pairs well with soft ripened cheeses. Arimicid, okay. Heat Snare shell. Heat in the shell over a strong fire to bring out the umami-rich juices. Finally mince the mantle and toss with noodles. Top with sesame seeds. Pan-sear with herbs and oil until lightly crusted on the outside and rosy on the inside. Complement the savory flavors with a light and buttery creme sauce. The fatty muscle that controls those undulating motions must be eaten fresh. All that quick movement means the meat toughens quickly. Leave it out overnight to drain the mud from the carcass. When ready to eat, cut into rings and grill over high heat. The more you chew it, the more flavorful it becomes. Inedible, known to cause mass hysteria followed by leg spasms and internal thunderings. Egg tastes best in smoke. The flavor of the belly and the head is pleasantly warming. Surprisingly, the smoky frog isn't inedible. The ultimate ride. Plush and comfortable. I wish I could bring it home with me. Convenient for procuring ingredients, compact with a tight turning radius. Looks like a picnic carrot. I bet it tastes good, but I'm practicing self-restraint. When I look at it, all I see is ears. I look at that mouth and just want to put my hand in it, just to see what would happen. I think I broke a tooth on one of these. He tried to eat rock Pikmin? I once had a dream that I was abducted by a winged specimen. By a winged... Oh, the Scornet Maestro. So, alternate universe, I guess. Or the events of 1, 2, and 3 were all dreams during the events of Pikmin 4. A kitchen essential used for freezing ingredients and storing leftovers. Not meant to be ingested, best used as bait. Very heavy. Tenderizing the meat would be way too difficult. If you look closely, you'll see its legs are sprouting a dense layer of hair. Sauté in oil to add fragrance spice to your disc, but eat too much and you'll smell like it for days. Way too spicy for a salad, no matter what color bud you use. On a quest for the perfect goût de jour, slow cook this plant in a wood fire oven, but be careful to only serve the tender pellet. Dry out the fruit and grind into a fine consistency, perfect for adding a touch of spice. Doesn't smell alive. Interesting implications. I mean, they're just light, right? So, smells a lot like an onion. The green juice is particularly delicious. And that's all of Louie's notes of the 125 creatures in the game. So now we gotta do Almar's notes. I'm excited to see what he has to say. But first, more water. Although initially identified as a juvenile bulborb, groundbreaking new research indicates that this creature is in fact a member of the breadbug family. A close relative of breadbug, it escapes predation through mimicry. Unique adaptation of the bulborb's crimson coloration allows the species to safely commingle. Such effective adaptation and obfuscation by a prey species is rare, indicating this clever creature is a master of mimicry. Why are there two entries? Like two different looking entries. A bulborb larva after its first molt. Due to its pale coloration, it was assumed to be a mimic when it was first discovered. It was later confirmed to be a true dwarf bulborb. I wish that this was renamed to, like red dwarf bulborb or spotted dwarf bulborb, and this was just dwarf bulborb, as opposed to this being the albino. So this could be dwarf bulborb, and this could be dwarf bulborb mimic or whatever. I don't know. To avoid predation from the adult bulborbs, it spends a majority of the daytime hours living underground. It becomes more active at night when its paler coloration is more difficult to see. Wait, they would eat their own kids? Wow, okay. In this state, it is difficult to discern what species of bulborb any given juvenile may be by appearance alone. It's only after a bulborb's second molt that they start to display more distinguishing species characteristics. Interesting. And maybe that's why they would be eaten, because like the if they're with a orange bulborb, but they're actually a red bulborb, I don't know. Anyway, this large organism has the familiar mandibles and carnal morphology of the grub dog family, as well as the characteristic bulging eyes. As with most grub dogs, the creature's cranium comprises half of its total length and girth. Showing a scarlet abdomen with white spots, this creature is primarily nocturnal, choosing to prey upon smaller creatures returning to their nests. Originally classified as the spotty bulborb, further research has reclassified the species as the basic bulborb. Subspecies of varied colors have recently been discovered, but academics are divided into two rival camps over how to handle their classification. Okay. During reproduction, after an egg is fertilized by a sperm, any excess chromosomes are usually discarded through a process called meiosis, but occasionally this process fails to occur and a bulborb individual will develop irregularly due to this chromosomal abnormality. Specimens like this one are stronger than the average bulborb and can exhibit more aggressive behavior. However, they are not able to procreate as they will never reach sexual maturity. Interesting. Just as dwarf red bulborbs mimic the appearance of the bulborb, it was theorized that a variant mimicking the orange bulborb must also exist. Recent fieldwork has confirmed this theory. This bulborb species boasts a garnish color pattern with a deep orange body and black spots. The orange bulborb's yellow bloodshot eyes make it clear that this bulborb is excessively edgy and high-strung, making it much easier to wake from sleep than the other species in the grub dog family. As well as, in this game, they actually have more health. Neat. Spotty bulborb larva in its third stage of development. This creature's body structure is nearing maturation. However, unlike mature bulbers, it has yet to claim its own patrol route, and thus is dependent on its parent for guarding direction. A mid-sized subspecies within the grub dog family. The spotty bulbear's unique feeding habits set it apart from the other grub dogs. It patrols a set path, searching for prey instead of passively feeding on creatures that wander into a limited territorial range. When entering spotty bulbear habitat, it is wise to proceed with extreme caution until the bulbear's patrol path can be clearly identified. Yes. Much like more mature specimens, the juvenile frosty bulborb is able to create and carry ice on epidermis that promotes excellular freezing. However, they take an entire night to regenerate their ice, which is why they're often accompanied by adults. Juveniles display a smaller number of spots than the adults, causing some to believe this was actually a species of mimicking breadbug. However, the results of further analysis prove this was not the case. I kind of wish that they just made all the dwarf bulborbs except for the dwarf bullbears and the albino ones breadbugs. I wish this was a breadbug. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, a bulborb with large amounts of ice and frost covering its midsection. It's unusual to find ice such as this attached to a living organism, as it's cold enough to freeze small animals and regenerates any ice mass that gets broken off. Okay. Bodily excretions of a highly flammable waxy substance interact with the cell structure of this grub dog's skin, causing a chemical reaction that produces extremely high temperatures. The skin benefits from a spongy cell structure that diffuses the surface heat, protecting the creature's inner organs. Due to the astonishing amount of heat produced by this beast, it should be observed with great caution. Instead of the gnashing jaws usually found in related species, it uses its extensible, very vicious tongue to capture prey. Even before it opens its mouth, it's recognizable by its tapered snout and black spots against its white back. Some theorize that it evolved its long tongue to snatch prey drawn to high blooming flowers, but a recent finding confirmed that until its second molt, this creature feeds with its teeth much like other grub dog species. It will begin to use its tongue once it reaches adulthood. Interesting. As its name implies, this creature is a bulborb in an early stage of development. Its distinct bulborb coloration has yet to appear, but it already exhibits other uniquely bulborb characteristics. It is capable of hunting nourishment independently without the help of its parents. Yeah. Initial observations placed doubt on the ability of the grub dog family to support a strong ant or beetle or bee-like social structure, but recent studies show the family is capable of such complexity for brief periods when certain external parameters are met. The egg sac of the largest female grub dog within a given range swells to dramatic proportions in response to environmental changes, such as the sudden depletion of prey species. The female temporarily take on the role of pack matriarch. Also in pack formation, it has been observed that nearly all males not involved in species reproduction undergo natural sex changes. The characteristics of such specimens are quite intriguing indeed. The largest member of the grub dog family is normally found burrowed underground. This camouflage allows the predator to surprise smaller creatures and use its long adhesive tongue to capture prey. The thick hide and angular hump give the organism a distinct rock-like quality. During the rainy season, moss grows freely on its hump, making it nearly impossible to distinguish this lethal predator from a stone. In emperor bull blacks of extremely advanced age, it will no longer display the pack behavior commonly exhibited by younger members of its species. Instead, as an individual ages, it leaves the herd and exhibits more solitary behaviors. It feeds by using its strongly developed legs to leap upon and crush its prey with speed disproportionate to its massive body. To determine the age of any given specimen, you can count the rings of hide calcified in the form of a carapace. One ring forms roughly every year the creature lives. Individuals with over 100 age rings have been discovered so far. The sovereign bullback's back is often covered in moss and perturdiophytes on a few occasions. Specimens have been found with a rare species of mushroom called a bulboral growing on its back. Interestingly, looking at the design between the two, this is the one that obviously appeared at the end of Pikmin 1, which I think is cool, because it's just a, advanced age Emperor Bull Black. So, it's technically still an Emperor Bull Blacks, Alright, water time. This creature expels a volatile phosphorus compound from its snout that combusts upon contact with air. This fire-breathing ability is dependent upon the air-to-fuel ratio at its mouth, catalyst reaction within the expelled compound, and purification of the compound. Thus, it is highly unlikely such a complex process could cause the spontaneous explosion of a fallen blowhog. This process is also perhaps to avoid risk of spontaneous combustion in the belly of a live specimen. However, one should still treat a fiery blowhog with great care during transfer. A variant subspecies of the fiery blowhog, the watery blowhog lacks several of the genes necessary for the production of fire-producing catalyst, and thus expels jets of non-flammable liquid. Okay. This subspecies appears to have only recently evolved. However, the hereditary traits of this variant are dominant and highly robust, so its population is rapidly increasing. The species has the ability to condense atmospheric carbon dioxide within an organ called a cold sac. The cold sac creates dry ice, and its vapors are then expelled as icy breath. A close relative to the species, the fiery blowhog can keep its internal body temperature from rising because of the phosphoric compounds it expels only ignite when they make contact with the air. In contrast, the snowy blowhog maintains internal body conditions below freezing, and its other internal organs are protected by thick layers of fat and the extracellular freezing that occurs within its cold sac. Interesting. Due to a hormone anomaly, this fiery blowhog specimen has grown to an regularly giant size. As a result, its mouth and the organs that regulate its fire-breathing abilities are significantly larger. So, the firepower of this specimen greatly exceeds that of its normal counterpart. The fire it produces is actually so strong that the stress it places on the creature's internal organs is magnified, thus reducing its overall lifespan. The specimen is also unable to reproduce. This specimen is actually a snowy blowhog that lethal expeller actually a snowy blowhog, that lethal exploder of icy air. However, it's grown to a gigantic size thanks to an endocrine anomaly. Unlike the Titan blowhog, this condition does not sentence the blizzarding blowhog with a shorter lifespan. In fact, its lifespan is actually much longer than that of the average snowy blowhog. The organs that produce the dry ice are also enlarged in the specimen, perhaps in order to make production more efficient. Interesting. Similar to an ancestor species of the fiery blowhog, this creature has a pair of sharp tusks that it uses to charge enemies with vigorous violence. It demonstrates its aggressive nature when it pursues its prey and when it's attacked by a predator of its own. In the case of the latter, the tusked blowhog will attack its attacker, causing them to balk while it can dash away to safety. The species also has extremely sharp sense of smell, which it uses to detect the pheromone. Oh, didn't mean to do that. She uses to detect the pheromone-like scent of its favorite food, underground mushrooms. So it's definitely more of a pig or boar than the other blowhogs. But I don't know why they're calling it a blowhog. It doesn't even blow. Oh, whatever. This specimen is a lithopod larva. Lithopods, like flint beetles, use internal metabacteria to aid chemical digestion. These metabacteria can only survive in certain environments, such as within the body of certain insects. So lithopod larvae do not contain any metabacteria immediately after hatching. Larvae feed on partially digested or regurgitated by mature lithopods, ensuring the larvae obtain metabacteria they would not normally have acquired. Males of this species are known for their horn-like blowholes. When females reach maturity, their blowhole closes and they lose the ability to launch rocks. At the start of breeding season, the females lay eggs on rocks launched by a male. The rocks then become food for the growing larvae. Though once mistaken for adult armored cannon beetles, this species is actually a naturalized non-native species that migrated here from another continent. So these aren't armored cannon beetles, or they aren't related to the yeah, because that's a Chacalune. This is a Ferorius. Okay. The horned cannon beetle can breed with adult armored cannon beetles, but only about half of the eggs will actually hatch. The hybrid species has the potential to seriously pollute the gene pool. Furthermore, it exhibits aggressive territorial behavior, sometimes launching boulders at young armored cannon beetles, which has driven the latter species to the verge of extinction. Interesting. I bet you if they're going to use an armored cannon beetle, like in the next game, we're probably going to get some kind of like weird, probably going to need a Pikmin, like maybe rock Pikmin for the actual armored cannon beetle. And I wonder if we'll see horned cannon beetle larva. It'll be interesting. Arctic cannon larva. Like other members of the lithopod family, its internal bacteria are specialized to form ice compounds from ambient moisture, which it then expels as projectiles. It technically doesn't rely on cold temperatures to create this ice, which is formed by the pressurized internal fluids that act as a coolant. When the projectiles rapidly expand, they absorb ambient heat, lowering the air temperature enough for the moisture in the air to freeze. Upon reaching maturity, the blowhole on its head closes, leaving in its place the pointed crest of the Arctic cannon beetle's shell. In order to get enough food in nutrient-deficient environments, adult specimens start breathing through their mouths. Some experts have posited that this adaptation caused the species to lose territorial competitions with the armored cannon larva, driving it into colder environments. Though this beetle has increased suction strength, it must ventile via a spiracle on its abdomen and open its shell to avoid rapid body inflation. Interesting. The The males of the species are purple and black creatures with tapered mouths, while the females are lighter in color and lack armored exoskeleton. As with most mandiblards, these creatures have regressed to the point where they have lost both legs and wings. They can be seen crawling around on the ground and are believed to feed on vegetable extracts from the congelated fluids of expired Pikmin. This specimen is a male sheargrub. Having lost both legs and wings, the male burrows into the soil and waits to ambush the small creatures that pass by. This beast's mandibles can be dangerous, making creatures such as Pikmin easy prey. The mama sheargrub will typically molt when it reaches maturity, then dig itself into the ground to prepare for egg laying. However, certain types like this specimen exhibit neoteny and retain the appearance of a juvenile of the species. So you're saying that there's like going to be a monoma sheargrub that looks different? Okay. If this species locates an abundant food source, they won't leave it. Sometimes they will stay at that spot for years, steadily growing to gigantic proportions like this one. Though this specimen has the look of a juvenile, it has fully developed reproductive abilities and can achieve impressively high birth rates. Its offspring, however, are the same size as a typical sheargrub. Unusual for their genus, flying mandiblards have retained their wings. However, only the adult males of the species can fly. Females of the species spend most of their lifespan underground. They do emerge for a period of time after maturation to spawn, but they never metamorphosize. Or morphose? Anyway. Cheerfully, the sensory hairs growing on this creature's orange body segments can detect body temperatures, movements, and carbon dioxide levels. It clings to its prey with its claw-like front legs and sucks their blood through its pointed proboscis. Researchers found that the shear flea can store energy created while contracting its bellows-like body and the elastic proteins located at the roots of its hind legs, allowing it to repeatedly jump very high. Its reproductive rates are rather explosive. A small group of egg-laying females can boom into a population of over 100 in a month's time. Others within this family wear their shells on their bellies, but this one's shell functions more like a helmet. Its wings have atrophied into uselessness, so instead it burrows beneath the ground and pops out only to pierce prey with its needle-like proboscis to drain their bodily fluids. Larval joust mites remain underground for years or even decades in some cases. It's a close relative of the original burrownit species, but this variety of joust mite still has the use of its wings. Oddly, it still makes its habitat below ground and employs the same tactic of lying in wait before emerging to strike. The helmet protecting its head is functionally as hard as steel due to the waxy secretions in its pores that absorb and redirect any shocks it sustains. The scraponids originally lived on the ground, supporting poorly developed vestigial wings. This species developed enlarged antennae that can be used as makeshift wings. Scraponids are attracted by the sight of large groups of Pikmin in cavalry formation and will swoop down to seize them. However, scraponids do not eat Pikmin and they will drop any seized Pikmin after a short time. The reason for this behavior is unknown, but I look forward to future research in the area. The skitterleaf is a relative of the pond skater that shed its wings and adapted to life on the ground. With no residual traits of its airborne past, the skitterleaf can neither fly nor skid across the surface of the water. The wings have since evolved into the leaf-like structure on its back, which serves to hide the skitterleaf through mimicry. It appears quite effective, as few predators can see through this clever disguise. Also, I don't think skitterleafs appear on the radar when they're in leaf form, so pretty cool. The skitterling variant that resembles dead leaves. Its legs have developed in specific ways. The front claws capture prey, while the flat hind legs are suited for running and swimming. Its highly tuned senses keep it still for any creatures but Pikmin. Once it gets its claws on prey, it doesn't easily let go. Recent research has revealed that its camouflage has a second purpose beyond hunting. Scavengers are fooled by its disguise into carrying its eggs, thereby expanding the population. Members of the Dweevil family are known for carrying objects of astounding size on their backs, then mimicking them. The fire dweevil is one species in this family. Generally, this is a very gentle insect that feeds on grass nectars, but when faced with danger, the fiery dweevil ignites flammable internal gases, juts out its jaw, and spews scorching flames. As this clearly makes it a rather dangerous insect, it's best not to linger directly in front of it. Members of the dweevil family are known. The antelope dweevil is one in this family. They seem to have no particular preference for which objects they will carry on their backs, as they will carry anything they can lift. They boast an internal organ that generates electrical charges, which the antelope dweevil releases when it senses danger. A member of an insect family known for mimicking objects by carrying them on their backs. Several points of difference with other members of... Didn't mean to do that. Several points of differentiation with other members of the species have been confirmed, such as body color and behavioral patterns, but none of these suggest major deviations in the creature's genetic structure. This makes it clear that it is a relative of the family. When attacked by enemies, the hydra dweevil spits out bodily fluids in response. Spacesuits corrode and oxidize when they come in contact with this liquid. Dweevils have varying body colors in response to their feeding habitats. Each species feeds on different types of plants and small animals, so the symbiotic bacteria that creates their pigmentation differ as well. The ice-blown dweevil lives in cold habitats and spews frigid gas, so the workings of its symbiotic bacteria are dulled and it retains its natural color, which is white. That's not very white to me. It's very chilly blue. It's been confirmed that in more temperate climates where food that the fiery dweevil eats is readily available, the ice-blown dweevil's coloration is much peachier. Interesting. Venom dweevil. The venom dweevil is one member of the dweevil family, which is known for mimicking objects carrying on the back. These insects often carry the carcasses of other life forms on their backs. Apparently, this is not for the purpose of transporting them as food, but instead is another example of their mimic behavior. The venom dweevil produces two different chemical compounds within its body, which form poisonous gas when mixed and expelled. This gas is used only for self-defense. Arachnode. The spider-like creature has distinctive yellow stripes on its back carapace. It spins webs in high-traffic areas and waits for prey to blunder into them. Unlike its relatives in the arachnorb and dweevil families, it's ambisexual and has 8 legs. Some theorize that its genadry is meant to aid in reproduction, though of course it cannot reproduce on its own. There is another theory that this species is in fact two organisms of opposing gender stuck together, but since no one has ever found a 4-legged single-sex specimens, this remains speculative. A shaggy longlegs that has lost its hair. Its similarities to the beady longlegs, but it doesn't secrete wax from its exoskeleton, and thus lacks its cousin's unique patterning. The absence of wax also allows small insects to climb its legs without slipping. Its central orb splits horizontally, but researchers have yet to determine the significance of this difference. Why haven't we seen a shaggy longlegs in this game? That's kind of stupid. This species of the arachnorb family fuses with machinery at a crucial point in the maturation process, giving it the ability to fire energy bursts from the launcher beneath its orbicular torso. However, the man-at legs itself is not in control of the weapon. Instead, the mechanical portions of its structure appear to automatically acquire and attack targets. The man-at legs has a gentle disposition and is a member of the arachnorb family and has no natural enemies. It is particularly difficult to understand why this species would develop such awesome offensive capabilities, leading to rumors among the scientific community that it was the machinery that approached the arachnorb and proposed a symbiotic relationship. This species has some remaining organic internal organs, but its carapace and eyes are made up of inorganic material. All 19 of its eyes are actually photoelectric sensors that the species uses to precisely locate its prey. The gas emitted from the posterior of its first leg joints includes a chemical substance that, after making contact with another organism's brain, temporarily controls that organism's actions. The groovy longlegs uses this natural phenomenon called the endless dance to make its prey jump between its legs while it moves around in bizarre rhythms. The entire interaction is seemingly odd. for a living organism, where the line between organic and inorganic on this planet is not always clear. Water time, because this is a lot of reading. The specimen is representative of an insect hybrid that uses electricity in addition to glycogen for its energy. Although difficult to confirm due to their microscopic size, the hairs on the creature's legs cause the friction that generates the electrical charge. The electrical charge is produced by the creature's internal battery structure and then stored as an electrical field. As this field reaches critical levels, surplus electricity is emitted, resulting in a low-voltage current that is transmitted between specimens. It can shock other creatures in the immediate vicinity. Considering this process, it can be surmised that the largest impetus to pack behavior is not so much for the synergetic effect of producing as a pack as it is to take advantage of this most effective means of group preservation. Iridescent flint beetle. Flint beetles are known to hide in the grass until approached, at which point they jump out and scurry around. These creatures keep undigested food pellets in their stomachs to sustain them through winter, but given the right stimulus, they will spit them out. Research has revealed that these pellets are enveloped in a membrane that seals and preserves them in a sterile, airtight environment. If kept at room temperature, it seems that this pellet membrane will keep its contents fresh for up to 6 months. The membrane may be made from the same substance that gives the exoskeleton of the flint beetle its beautiful sheen. While life forms that exhale foul musks to warn of danger are not rare, the doodlebug is the only species known to release flatulence when active above ground. Interestingly enough, since it is merely releasing the gas created by the decay of contents of the creature's intestines, it does not have a special musk-producing organ. This means the creature is in fact merely flatulating. Spectral analysis of the rank gas indicates it contains not only methane but hydrogen sulfide as well, making the flatulence a grade 13 biohazard. This variety of beetle consumes subterranean minerals. Due to the fact that it rarely emerges above ground, sightings of this particular species are extremely rare. While minerals of this beast's primary source of food, the beetle itself does not have the ability to digest these materials. Instead, metabacteria living inside the beetle's stomach chemically breaks down the minerals. The resulting purified metal is discharged, but the rare metals such as gold and platinum crystallize onto the iridescent glint beetle's shell, resulting in the beautiful laminated shimmer. Mitite. These parasitic insects feed on eggs. Upon reaching maturity, they excrete a spectral pheromone that attracts females of particular species, enticing these females to swallow the mitites whole. Pikmin, however, seem to dislike the scent. After entering the host female's body, the mitites lay their own eggs inside the host's eggs just prior to the host spawning. Its main offensive strategy is to launch the crystal it carries on its back, otherwise it's completely defenseless. In most circumstances, it's a peaceful herbivore whose diet consists primarily of moss. When in danger, however, it wastes no time defending its territory by breaking small rocks and hurling them at the threat. In order to ensure it has a steady supply of rocks with which to defend itself, it shares its habitat with the calcified crushblat larvae so it can make use of the shells they cast off. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a calcified crushblat in this game. It skates on water at high speed, thanks to tiny hairs on the tip of its feet. These hairs are covered in ultra-hydrophobic substance to minimize friction against the water's surface. Its long proboscis functions as a straw to take in water, which is stored in a reservoir in its head, as well as the spout as a weapon against small insects. While taking in water, it also takes in microscopic plankton, meaning that its prime means of defense is also a feeding mechanism. A subspecies of the skeeter skate that's adapted to life in muddy wetlands. It uses its straw-like proboscis and the inside of which is packed with densely grown hair to capture any plankton living in the mucky water and filter out everything else. When an enemy approaches, it will threaten them by shooting out a murky substance. The combination of muddy water and the gastric juices has a higher viscosity, so it can essentially bury Pikmin and a lot of other stuff in dirt. It's remarkably similar to its unmarked brethren, but the telltale wing patterns and lone pair of hind legs give it away. It sticks to its own habitat for the most part, though it may fly away to reach a flower or escape a bullblacks. It'll soon return to its home. The white variety gathers no nectar, but sometimes may be found carrying raw material. The primary morphological difference from other spectralids is the eye-like spot on its wings. When crossbred with red spectralids, the offspring has a 25% chance of inheriting these spots on orange-colored wings. Would this count as a new subspecies? Unlike its red wings have several spots, unlike the lone spot on each wing of the yellow variety. Its scales contain trace amounts of ultra-spicy flakes which are mixed into its saliva as it sucks up the nectar from flowers. The combined flakes, saliva, and nectar are refined into ultra-spicy nectar inside the creature, which it uses as a growth supplement for its eggs. Despite this, its reproductive capabilities are quite low. It's for this reason that the red variant fetches astronomical prices among collectors. Snowflake fluttertail. The cooling cycle in its body uses ammonia as a refrigerant to chill the moisture it absorbs from the air until it reaches a supercooled state. By then, spraying it out of its several vents on its belly, the snowflake fluttertail creates a delicate cocoon out of ice to both protect itself and freeze its prey. Its rolled up spirally proboscis evolved from an upper jaw and can catch and tie up prey with the fine hairs on its surface. Though it mimics a type of swallow-tailed butterfly, this creature is actually more closely related to moths. One might extrapolate that its ancient ancestor was unable to adapt to the cooling climate and therefore went extinct. That its ancient was unable to adapt to the cooling climate? What? Oh, okay. Like saying that, only these guys exist for the species because, cool climate. Okay. Creeping chrysanthemum after a sip of water. Like Pikmin, the creeping chrysanthemum is a member of a group of creatures with ambulatory root structures. This creature is known as a mimic, but because it's actually a form of plant, this label is not entirely accurate. Okay. It uses its mimicry to lie in wait and ambush prey, unrecognized even by Pikmin despite being members of the same class of organisms. It relies on preying upon other creatures to provide sustenance, so it has no need of leaves for photosynthesis. Well, is it even a plant, then? Generally speaking, the role of plants within an ecosystem is as a producer species, and thus plants are generally found at the bottom of the food pyramid. However, on this strange planet, the line between producer plants and consumer plants is blurred. So, this is also part of chrysanthemum. Okay. The defining characteristics of the fungi that grow from its head differ from that of the chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum family's creeping chrysanthemum, but the makeup of the body out of which they grow is mostly the same. As a result, we can theorize that, like its fellow Ambulocridis, the bulbmin. What? We can theorize that, like its fellow Ambulocridis, the bulbmin, the species is not an evolutionary variation, but that the body is a parasite that is nested inside a group of mushrooms. Because the hosts are mushrooms, the startled spore cannot photosynthesize. Instead, it gains nutrients by catching its prey, highly poisonous fluids, or by absorbing the nectar and ground left behind as creatures killed by its poison decompose. Bullmen are confirmed to be a part of the world. They're not retconning Bullmen out, but they don't appear. Interesting. The adult breadbug competes for many of the same food sources as Pikmin, but its thick-skinned hide allows it to withstand most Pikmin group attacks. However, some researchers claim to have observed breadbugs being overwhelmed by massive numbers of Pikmin and reduced to food. This gargantuan species of the greater breadbug family has a torso so perfectly square that it almost seems like it was formed in a mold. For a brief period after birth, the giant breadbug competes for food with smaller breadbugs, but upon reaching maturity, it seeks out much larger prey. This is the primary reason two species with similar feeding habits can coexist in the same habitat. Hordes of Pikmin appear to pose the only plausible threat to this massive creature's life. Wow. This thing is basically they're saying this thing is immune to everything except, like, you know, Pikmin. Because the Pikmin can drag it back to an onion or whatever and it'll get bopped on the head. Or purple Pikmin and yellow Pikmin can land on top of it to squish it. Interesting. Gildamandry. Immediately after hatching, the species presents itself in a gilded tadpole-like form and grows its legs after about a week. This juvenile Gildamander specimen is estimated to be about 1 month old due to the presence of an ore-like growth on its back and the fact that it already has emerged onto land. Living ore has substances similar to treasure within it, a particular scent and effect on both sensors and Pikmin. However, the lantern organ on its head is still underdeveloped and can only emit a very faint electromagnetic waves. For this reason, juvenile Gildamanders often hide out of sight to avoid Pikmin attacks. The ore-like growth on its back is a coagulated body fluid that includes a substance similar to sparklium, which can make our mechanical sensors go berserk, to use a technological term. This living ore emits a scent that lures the creature's prey, but it's also important for the feeding process. Lantern-like organ atop its head emits electromagnetic waves that are known to affect Pikmin and onions, confusing them into thinking the Gildamander is their leader, allowing it to withdraw Pikmin directly from the onion? However, it cannot go so far as to command them as a squad, so the Pikmin will also often hide under cover and are able to avoid ingestion. Confusing them to thinking Gildamander is the leader. Is that why we can command the Pikmin? Then, because we have, like, a similar lantern-like orb on top of our spacesuits. Interesting. Can't command them, so the Pikmin will hide under cover and are able to avoid ingestion. Oh, it can withdraw Pikmin from the onion. That's why they were acting weird in Olimar's shipwrecked tale. Okay. But withdrawing them, like, not by standing under the onion. Okay. But Pikmin will often... Okay, so this part is just explaining Olimar's shipwrecked tale. It's not, like, explaining what happens when you fight it in a cave. Okay. Miniature Snootwhacker. Immediately after birth, the species' skin starts to harden, and before long it will reach the same impenetrable toughness as that of an adult. Adult snootwhackers dexterously use their tusks to grab fruit from high tree branches, but juveniles consume fruits and nuts that have fallen to the ground, as well as other types of terrestrial flora. The specimen's leg and torso muscles are underdeveloped compared to those in their nose, so they lack the strength to maintain their posture and easily lose their balance. They do? I haven't seen that in action, but whatever. The long nose on this specimen has neither bone nor cartilage, but is made up entirely of muscle and can be flexibly curved and extended. Its tough hide consists of densely layered collagen lactices that cover almost its entire body, leaving only the regular skin on the belly exposed. The fully developed trunk is large and quite heavy, so the mammoth snootwhacker usually rolls it inward to carry it closer to the center of gravity. But if its territory is invaded, it will extend the trunk and flail it around, even using it to strike a perceived enemy. Just like a juvenile snootwhacker, their nose comprises of a disproportional amount of their body weight, resulting in poor balance if attacked from behind or from the side. Even an adult of the species is easily knocked over. A type of primitive organism called a protochondrate, in its juvenile state. It has a skeleton-like structure called a notochord. It flaps its finned tail to move and lives with other creatures' eggs as it grows. As its body develops, it starts to exhibit mollusk-like qualities, but its highly exposed external stomach can directly digest prey on contact and can also be used for locomotion. Interesting. A member of the Gulix family, this primitive life form is made up of a single cell, which is quite odd given its size. Its nucleus shaped like a bulbous star. An individual is moved by using the fin at the end of its flagellum-like tail to quickly expand and contract its gelatinous body. If the nucleus is removed, its soft body loses all structure and splatters, but as long as the nucleus is still alive, the fulix can return to its original form. Usually the fulix will mimic nectar and wait for its prey. Its gel, which includes fire-extinguishing fluids, will then expand to capture and feed on unsuspecting organisms. Downy snagret. Due to a common phenomenon known as imprinting, this baby will recognize anything that it sees or hears within a given length of time after it hatches as its parent and consequently follows it around. However, the downy snagret has two specific conditions for imprinting. The first is that the target must be tall and blue, and the second is related to the sound of its cry. This means that it will never make a mistake with something as small as we are, and will instead recognize it, or us, as food. Since it is still a fledgling, the downy snagret does not go underground to feed. Instead, it stays on the surface where there is plenty of food. It looks harmless enough, but beware, its parents may be hiding nearby until the baby is old enough to fend for itself. The majority of the snagret species lie in wait to ambush and capture prey. With a body type perfectly adapted to such sudden strikes, it violently attacks small surface-dwelling insects. Distributed across a relatively wide range, subspecies of snagrets suited to the varying soil conditions have emerged, making the snagret the most geographically represented species beside the bulborb. Visually resembling the burrowing snagret is the burrowing snarrow, the range of which partially overlaps with the snagret's range. While the two may appear similar when pulled from the ground, they can be distinguished by the presence or absence of tail and wing markings. Wattle quaff after I take another sip of water. Its overdeveloped respiratory muscles allow it to suck in large volumes of air through its long, thick beak while feeding. Its feathers are too small to use for flying. The current theory is that this is due to its niche position in the ecosystem being quite secure, thanks to a lack of natural predators and little competition for food in its habitat. However, with the expansion of Pikmin territory, recently its numbers have been gradually declining. Related to bivalves, it uses its internal muscles to dexterously manipulate its upper and lower shells. This ability allows it to squash eggs in small ambulocracies like Pikmin, thus returning nectar to the ground. It then feeds off the microorganisms and moss that benefit from the nectar. To further facilitate the growth of its food, the scorched cake will secrete oils from its body through its shell and onto the ground. It then sets that area on fire, perhaps as a way to improve its soil fertility. This species has muscular organs that can create electricity by using iron gradients within densely layered rows of electricity, generating cells which are arranged in an asymmetrical series. It uses its plug-like protrusions to instantly shock its prey, and then squashes it. The squashed prey acts as fertilizer, improving the quality of the soil so that the microorganisms and moss the shock cake feeds on can thrive. By emitting frigid air from one side of its shell, it can freeze and squash any prey that approaches it too closely. Food can be hard to find in extremely cold climates, so one theory is that this species has developed some kind of mechanism that allows it to store its prey for long periods of time. A type of ambulofungus. The current working theory is that the puffstool evolved from a more common species of fungus that gained animal-like characteristics over time, including the ability to walk. When it senses danger, it will scatter spores from under its cap, releasing a hallucinogen that confuses the attackers. The hallucinogenic compound in the spores is only effective against the species' natural enemies, the Pikmin, causing them to mistake it for their leader. Pikmin who fall into this trap are then used as workers to maintain nutrition or defenses for the puffstool. Much like the puffstool, the toxstool is neither animal nor fungus, but a mix of the two, or an ambulofungus. It doesn't serve as a producer or consumer role in the ecosystem, but functions instead as a decomposer. It primarily parasitizes other living organisms by blanketing them with its spores. However, the toxstool can infect a deceased specimen as well. Its hyphae is able to move the muscles and control the body as if it bringing it back from the dead. The way the fungal filaments grow differs based on the host organisms. In some cases, it may cause the host to wander around in search of food to facilitate a more nutrient-rich fungal culture medium. They can also just use the host as a means to scatter more spores. Interesting. Moldy dwarf bulboar. This is an example of a young bulboar body that's been infected by a fungal filaments. Now a host, it unconsciously continues to seek out and ingest food, all the while scattering large amounts of spores out of the spore sacs on its back until it can no longer move. After all host body activity ceases, the specimen mutates into a fungal creature that will eventually become a juvenile toxstool. Both the nervous system and slime-producing organ of this specimen have been invaded by fungal filaments, which is why it scatters spores as it moves. It will also shake spores onto other creatures, thus infecting new hosts and expanding the toxstool's habitat and range. Once the host body ceases to function, it can no longer serve as a fungal culture medium because its bodily fluids dry up and the corpus shrinks. At that point, the host body is abandoned. A species of territorial snail coated in flammable mucus instead of the traditional shell. This creature stays lubricated through consistent secretion of mucus so that the fires never reach its skin. The most fascinating aspect of these creatures is their instinctive ability to avoid causing widespread fires by carelessly brushing plants. The hair covering its face works as a capacitor. It charges electricity by rubbing the hair to build static, then discharges it at enemies intruding on its territory. It's more territorial than aggressive, attacking only when threatened rather than to hunt prey. It has several qualities unique to this ecosystem, such as breastfeeding its young, which may someday give rise to a whole new taxonomy of fauna here. The imbalanced asymmetrical arms of the mamuta are among its most notable features. Feeding on seeds and fruit, the mamuta is known to actually sow and grow plant species. While other species have exhibited seed-bearing behavior for the purpose of storage, the mamuta is the only species so far known to actually cultivate fields of plants. Its needle-covered armor is soft and quite exposed. Furthermore, it has a cowardly disposition, so when it senses even the slightest danger, it shoots out its spikes. Regenerating new spikes requires significant amounts of caloric energy, so this creature acquires significant amounts of food. This likely explains why, when it scrounges through garbage, it sucks up not just the insects it finds, but also the trash itself. They have ingested a few of the SS Dolphin's parts too, but those could never be mistaken for trash. This floating life form drifts effortlessly upon the winds. Upon its death, its physical structure instantly collapses, and as the creature is particularly elusive and difficult to catch, no sample of specimens have been acquired as of yet. If we would simply recover a live sample, research on the species would likely proceed more smoothly. This species of blowhog uses internally generated hydrogen to inflate a flotation bladder and hover above the ground. The creature's electrified pulse creates a sash of color that flows along the surface of its body, making it particularly beautiful species in the blowhog family. Precisely how it's able to internally stabilize its highly explosive hydrogen and simultaneously generate electricity remains a mystery. The puffy blowhog blows leaves and grass around to eat the insects underneath. It maintains midair buoyancy by using its fins and releasing air through blowholes. This enables it to float effortlessly even in the breeze. This creature possesses 3 lungs. An air sac uses its primary respiratory organ, a flotation bladder that gives it its buoyancy, and a cold sac that stores cold air. Like the puffy blowhog, its buoyancy is a result of the hydrogen produced by electrolysis. Its icy breath is condensed carbon dioxide, much like the snowy blowhog. Different species within the blowhog family have many features in common when you look closely at the structure and characteristics of their internal organs. The withering blowhog is a close relative of the puffy blowhog, but its breath is significantly weaker. However, its breath does contain a petal-withering plant hormone that causes flowers to instantly lose their petals. Although its breath has not been studied in detail, analysis of the chemical compounds involved hold great promise for the biotechnology sector. Alright, time for more water. This native jellyfloat is indigenous to the region. Unfortunately, it is currently endangered as its habitat is being overwhelmed by hostile invasive species. Vivid pink coloration is the most noticeable characteristic of this floating life form. This invasive species is not native to the region, having appeared to have recently arrived on wind currents. The luminescent organs atop its head attract prey, which it then sucks up and consumes with its lower orifice. Unlike jellyfish, the jellyfloat's tentacles do not have nematocysts, so there is no danger in touching them. Walpole. The yellow lollipop spawns in early spring, laying its eggs on low-hanging tree branches and shrubs growing in or near lakes and ponds. Such unorthodox amphibious behavior is a defense mechanism, protecting the eggs from predation by blue Pikmin and water dimples. The lollipop's wild hop didn't mean to do that. The lollipop's wild hopping near the shoreline in early spring is thought to be a method of driving predators away from the walpole eggs. This magnificent specimen has remarkably bright coloration compared to the rest of the amphituber family, as well as 3 lateral spots. This species seems to have lost some swimming proficiency with the evolutionary adaptation that granted its jumping ability. The yellow lollipop inhabits aquatic shadows and shows an instinctive drive to jump upon and squash small creatures. It is believed that juvenile lollipops were once carried by underground currents into caverns, where they thrived in the dark habitat. This trogeologic species of lollipop's coloration results from generations of cave dwelling and lack of sunlight. Comparative differences between the size and shape of this lollipop and other species are thought to be the result of natural selection at work, choosing traits better suited to live in a subterranean environment. And they look okay. I like the yellow lollipops better. Chili hop. When squishing prey with its mighty leap, the chili hop secretes a bodily fluid made up of ammonium nitrate, urea, and water. This causes an endothermic reaction that rapidly freezes its prey, making its attack all the more lethal. After squishing the prey, it gets sucked up through the chili hop's belly. Since the species can store its food in a slightly chilled state without eating it for a time, it easily adapts to environments where prey is scarce. Master hop. It's widely believed that yellow lollipops and other related species can continue to grow until they start breeding, but after that their growth rate plummets. However, in safe environments, ones that lack natural predators, for example, some individuals of the species may forgo reproduction altogether and continue growing until they reach gigantic proportions. The yellow wallyhop's telomerase enzymes are particularly active, which prevents their body cells from aging. Under the right conditions, it's not unusual for some individuals to reach over 50 years in age. A resident of freshwater pools and marshes, this aquatic creature regularly feeds on insects that land on the surface of the water. It shares a nearly identical skeletal structure with its close relative and terrestrial cousin, the bulborb. This may offer clues to its evolutionary origin and suggest that it only recently emerged to an aquatic habitat. Many assume it's underdeveloped due to its large eyes and lack of fins, but this is simply its normal, fully grown form. Though its dorsal and ventral fins have atrophied, the long caudal fin helps to compromise for this. It can leap high enough out of the water to catch low-flying prey. These scales, comprising the round patches along the sides, are known to turn light pink during breeding season. Its hidden spikes evolved from scales that were once on its forehead. The prickle puff uses them to charge and chase off unknown creatures that enter its territory. Its liver and ovaries contain powerful nerve toxins accumulated from ingesting shellfish and algae with trace amounts of poison. These toxins not only function as an alternative pheromones, but also seem to keep predators at bay. However, once it's dead, the Pikmin have no issues carrying this creature back to the onion, where the poison is broken down into valuable nutrients. So it sounds like they wanted this creature to maybe be poisonous and be a white Pikmin enemy, but they decided to make it fully water-based. Interesting. Its eyes and stubby feet make it look like an octopus, hence the name, but it's closer in anatomy to starfish. It sleeps during the day, but will stay alert for approaching predators, which it drives off by puffing itself up and releasing bubbles. Closer research suggests that the true purpose for the bubbles is to protect its eggs during spawning season. A juvenile peckish aristocrab, small in size, its right pincer is only half grown. Because of this, it often hunts by hiding underground and lying in wait to ambush its prey. Generally, crabs pass through the larval stages zoea and megalopa as they approach juvenile crabhood. Instead, the peckish aristocrab is born with a body shaped like an onion, absorbing its nutrition through the ground and sprouting legs as it grows. Perhaps it's a close relative of the species in the Ambulocridis class. It has unnaturally large claws used for catching prey, for self-defense, and most surprisingly for its mating call. Most aspects of the aristocrab's life revolve around it, which may explain why they become fearful and docile when the claw is damaged. It would also account for the claw's remarkable regenerative capabilities, which can restore it completely in a single night. It's also known to blow bubbles when under attack, but this is a result of it venting from the wrong discharge valve when under extreme stress. Grubchucker. This bipedal creature walks upright, so its motion is noticeably slow, but the long reach of its pincers are useful for catching prey and tossing it into the wide mouth on top of its head. When young, this mouth stays closed, and the grubchucker lives on things like shellfish, nuts, and fruits, eating using the small trophy located behind the feelers below its eyes. As it grows, its sincipitable mouth opens and it can start eating larger quantities of food. It has few natural enemies, primarily due to its height. However, it's often found in dimmer wetlands or underground to protect the soft top of its shell from the sun's rays. Looking at the eyes and sickle-shaped legs on characteristic of squilias, one would think this is a squilia relative. In fact, it's a relative of the hermit crab. This species, however, has migrated from seaside life in a shell and instead inhabits burrows in the ground. While its legs appear sickle-like, they are pincers that have evolved into a fin shape. This beast feeds on small creatures that pass by its lair, dragging them inside to eat them. Like its cousin, the hermit crawdad, it makes its home in a burrow rather than a shell. It has abnormally overdeveloped eyes with which to detect prey in cloudy water or low visibility mud. These enormous eyes can perceive circular polarized light as well as the ultraviolet and infrared spectrum. It is well protected from predators, allowing it to live for upwards of 50 years and grow to immense size by repeated ecdysis. I don't know. Crested rumpup. Its body is covered by a hard carapace, and it has an extremely ferocious personality. It spreads its sharp-fanged jaws to catch its prey. The crested rumpup suffers from poor vision, but it uses the fine hairs on the lower part of its tail and the ball-shaped sensory organ at its tip to detect faint quasi-electrostatic fields emitted by other organisms. In short, it has other ways to sense its predators and prey. Using the pearl that takes shape inside its body as bait, this creature lures prey into its interior and traps it within its shell to feed. It's also worth noting that this pearl may just be an amalgamation of outside materials wrapped in viscous gelatin exterior. On the frequent occasions when it cannot gather food for itself, this creature can also obtain nutrients when the symbiotic algae within its body photosynthesizes. For this reason, it can often be found with its mouth open on shoals or sandy beaches that gets lots of sunshine. This species of creature has yet to complete its evolution from bloom-cap oyster to more advanced ranging oyster. Compared to the latter, this creature is substantially smaller. The fact that its mandibles do not protrude as significantly as the ranging oyster is due in part to the fact that, like most mollusks, its vital organs are located deep within the creature's carapace. The flower-like appendage on its back is actually a gill. It prefers a watery habitat from which it can capture unsuspecting small prey with its sticky tendrils. The origin species from which the ranging and toady oyster evolved, it still carries a large shell on its back. The exposed head and legs are covered by a layer of tough muscle, so it barely moves even when attacked. On the other hand, it has extremely sensitive flower-like gills that are characteristics of the mollusking family. When the gills are touched, the oyster cannot breathe and must open its shell, exposing its soft body. Amphibious with a gentle demeanor, it simply swallows up anything that happens to enter its field of vision, kind of like a living vacuum cleaner. So, I feel like it's not as dangerous as the toady oyster with just how it acts, you know? Like, it's a vacuum cleaner versus having, like, sticky tendrils. I don't know. So, we should have encountered this first, but whatever. Bog swallow. This species prefers to inhabit cloudy, stagnant water like that in swamps, and it spends most of its life buried in mud and hiding. Using its 6 eye-like sensory organs, it can detect minute movements in the water and vibrations on nearby land. It will then forcefully leap out of the water and suck up its prey to feed. With its entirely cartilaginous skeleton and somewhat primitive features, like its round, chinless mouth, it appears to be some sort of primeval creature. All that is known about this creature stems from a few sightings deep underground. All reporting sightings feature the same core set of details. A giant, vicious form with a clear, hazy sheen not unlike hard candy. One theory holds that it may be an ectoplasmic incarnation of a kind of psychic phenomena, but as is usually the case with such theories, it's very difficult to prove. All witnesses report being suddenly overcome with fear upon sighting the creature, approaching in a state of panic and near insanity. In fact, every report contains an inordinate amount of extremely vague details, which has led to suspicions that exhaustion and fear have caused some simple natural phenomenon to be viewed as a living creature. The smoky prog's body is constantly deteriorating, so collecting a living sample has been proven difficult, and research into the species has progressed at a glacial rate. However, by examining the genes that adhere to the smoky prog's eggs, it has been confirmed that they are in fact Mamuta eggs. This discovery allows for the possibility that Mamuta that do not develop properly and hatch become smoky progs. And that's why they're deteriorating? If hypothetically a Mamuta were to remain above ground at night and absorb glow sap that might impact the nutrient levels within its eggs yolk, that change could lead to the embryo's inviability or breakdown enzymes, then maybe to the embryo's inviability or break down its enzymes. So is it saying remain above ground at night and absorb glow sap that might impact the nutrient levels within egg yolk? That change should lead to the embryo's inviability. So what it's saying is that the smoky progs are just Mamuta eggs that were created after eating glow sap. Interesting. But why do they attack luminols then? If we harvest mesochemical stem cells from this gigantic canine creature and cultivate them with the glow sap, the generated serum could return Ochi's leafified tail to normal once administered. These results would indicate that 99.9% of the canine creature's DNA matches Ochi's, and that the only difference between Ochi and moss may be the natural presence or absence of a leaf tail. If these two theories prove to be true, it suggests the possibility that this creature is a common ancestor to two canine species from vastly remote star systems, and that perhaps there are even more hidden secrets out there that could hint at fascinating yet inconceivable truth the universe has yet to reveal. As far as I can tell, Moss has been a leafling pup since birth, and some of her DNA resembles that of the Pikmin. This is the one point in which she differs from Ochi. When Ochi transformed from a standard space dog into a leafling pup, I started to theorize that the Pikmin are, in some capacity, propagating their DNA in other organisms. The phenomenon in which all those castaways, including myself, became leaflings was very likely caused by being absorbed into the onion. Perhaps that process was also some sort of Pikminification of the body. Pikminified organisms can't leave this planet, so the Pikmin may have been motivated to carry out this process in an effort to secure a permanent leader. Of course, this is all theory. Pikmin are a part of the Ambulorchidus class, which consists of creatures that exhibit both plant and animal characteristics. A Pikmin will instinctively follow whoever plucks it from the ground, so it is quite common for them to form symbiotic relationships with another species or accept the leader of a different species, as it serves the goal of propagating their own species as a whole. The red Pikmin is the most common Pikmin species. It can be identified by the nose-like protrusions on its head and its highly aggressive behavior. It also has a few surprising and unique qualities. For example, its immunity to extreme heat and fire despite the fact that it's a living organism. This can be explained by looking closely at its skin and muscle fibers, which are made up of flame-resistant cellulose. It is generally believed that the Pikmin body was originally the root of a plant that has evolved over centuries, if not millennia, developing structures analogous to muscles, neural networks similar to those of a brain, and more. However, yellow Pikmin possess a perfect resistance to electricity, a force which actually poses extreme danger to other organisms. Oddly enough, this species of Pikmin actually seems to enjoy electricity. Their flowers even bloom when they are exposed to an electric current. This fact would lead one to believe that their neural transmission methods are quite different than our own. The species often uses their ear-like laminae on its head to soar to great heights and dig holes. The accepted theory is that Pikmin evolved from terrestrial root vegetables, and so would be unable to breathe underwater, and subsequently drown. Yet the blue Pikmin possess a gill resembling a mouth on their head, which enables them to be active underwater. While on land, they leaf and flower like other Pikmin species, and they breathe through the stomata on their skin, indicating they must be naturally amphibious. Pigment proteins on the surface of their body essentially perform the same photosynthesis processes cyanobacteria, for example, which is what gives them their striking color. The species is definitely a member of the Pikmin genus, but its body does not share any of the plant-like traits that Pikmin are known for. Instead, it's composed primarily of stone. The stone is actually the chosen host for a parasitic subset of Pikmin, species nicknamed Hermicman, so like hermit crab or whatever. Similar to how a seed can sprout and push through the cracks of a rock, the Pikmin's roots stretch deep into the stone, storing its vital organs in an interior cavity that resembles a crystal geode. Because the species displays characteristics common in parasitum, one could hypothesize that the rock onion and rock candy pop buds stockpile stone that will eventually host the rock Pikmin. Huh. The wings on the back of this flying Pikmin species closely resemble the wings you would find on a flying creature. It's possible that an ancient winged onion somehow absorbed a flying creature's DNA, which then resulted in the precursor to the winged Pikmin transforming into the species we recognize today. If this theory is correct, then onions might also be serving the role of messenger, transmitting new traits and characteristics to their Pikmin. I mean, that's kind of always what I thought, and that's why the onions were, different. And why we need specific onions, even though we have, just one, and why they fuse, because the different onions contain different genetic information to make, Anyway, Pikmin supposedly evolved from plants, yet there are also Pikmin species with bodies made of ice, known as ice Pikmin. How is that possible? The answer to that question lies in the fact that ice Pikmin are parasitic by nature, and the ice serves as their host. The composition of this type of ice is predictably mostly water, but it resembles saline solution with faint concentrations of trace sodium ions, potassium ions, and calcium ions that function as neurotransmitters. Interestingly, the ice exhibits no visual signs of melting or dripping when exposed to sunlight. This is due to its low-temperature core, which continuously creates more ice in order to maintain a consistent size. White Pikmin are born through a color-changing process within white candy pop buds, which only grow underground. The poison within its body is a type of diterpene alkaloid similar to a toxin often found in certain plant roots. If ingested, it can lead to vomiting, respiratory distress, and complete organ failure, ultimately resulting in certain death due to cardiac arrest. Though strongest poison also has medicinal uses, sometimes going by the name aconite. The Pikmin are ambiluses involved from plants, but it seems some species retain more of their plant-based evolutionary heritage than others. Slightly larger in size, purple Pikmin can weigh up to 10 times as much as the other Pikmin species, and when thrown to the ground, their impact creates just looking at the animation of this, and thrown to the ground, their impact creates gravitational waves that can actually warp space-time. It's astonishing. I mean, gravity does warp space-time, so, The density of their muscular fibers is also much higher than that of other Pikmin, allowing them to transport 10 times as much weight as their average-sized counterparts. The rich purple color is derived from strong polyphenol antioxidants. Like white Pikmin, they are born from underground candy pop buds, and no related onions have been discovered so far, but I think deep underground, deep among the relics of the past, a purple onion is waiting to be discovered. I already found it, Olimar. Sometimes it lies dormant much like a bulb, but dig it up from the ground and provide it with the right stimulus, for example, a good hard shake, and it will activate, sprouting 3 root-like legs. It serves a role similar to a nest or an incubator for the Pikmin, absorbing pellets or the bodies of dead creatures for their nutritional value and then propagating Pikmin the same color as itself. Onions also seem to greedily attempt to replicate certain characteristics of the matter that they absorb by combining with or absorbing other onions, sometimes of the same type. It has been confirmed that just like Pikmin, an onion has muscle fibers in its body, and though it's unable to walk, it's capable of a small range of motion. However, when one breaks down the biological matter it has absorbed, a fuel similar to bioethanol is created. Onions spray this fuel out of the mouths on their underbellies and are able to fly using their flower-like propellers for stabilization. Interesting. While it doesn't sprout or create Pikmin, this specimen is still a type of onion. A bulb like this one can be divided into 7 segments. It's highly nutrient-dense and contains strong energizing and anapolalic effects. The compounds are responsible for its characteristic smell resemble onion growth hormones. When absorbed by an onion, it fulfills a critical role in Pikmin proliferation by increasing the total number of Pikmin that can be withdrawn from the onion at any given time. Just like onions, it contains muscle fibers, but flour-like has no animalistic qualities to speak of. However, if you place one near an onion, it may start to move a bit, as though it's trying to roll over so it can be absorbed. What looks like the interior of a flower is actually insectivorous leaf that's developed into an organ. This organ releases a sweet scent from its central pistil, luring small insects into its interior and trapping them. The DNA of those captured organisms is directly absorbed by the plant's cells, which might indicate that this species is attempting to evolve at an astounding speed. But in most cases, the cells essentially self-destruct. The bud then releases Pikmin seeds of the same color, and the plant withers. Muscle fibers, extremely similar to those of an onion, were also found in this species, so one could hypothesize that a candy pop bud is an under or undeveloped onion. However, there aren't enough details to confirm this theory either way. In the stem of the pellet posy, one can observe the muscle fiber unique to half-plant, half-animal species such as the Pikmin and candy pop bud flowers, so the pellet posies is a species that can be considered a close relative. Although the ability to crystallize nectar is unique to a small group of the pelletweed family, the fact that these plants reach maturity so quickly and that their pellets contain such high concentrations of the natural nutrients in the soil explains why the Pikmin and so many of the other native species are so reliant on these pellets for sustenance. Like the pellet posy, while nectar is its primary source of nutrients, this burgeoning spirewort produces fruit with high amounts of super spicy compound. Both this plant and the pellet posy are part of the pelletweed family, but the spiderwort does not crystallize nectar because of the different fungi that parasitize its roots. Instead, it produces alkaloids that contain those of extra piquant compounds. The alkaloids are then extracted and collected by way of the plant's fruit. Whether or not a plant produces super spicy or super sweet compounds seems to depend on the type of fungus with which it interacts. Although they've been named glow Pikmin, it's not exactly clear whether or not the species is actually a type of Pikmin. These creatures possess the same fundamental behaviors of Pikmin, like carrying things, propagating, and fighting. They also share special characteristics such as the leaf atop their head, yet they do not spawn from an onion, but a luminol, and they are only active at night or underground. During the day, they revert into seeds and enter a resting state. What's even more surprising is that they exhibit no signs of life. When a glow Pikmin dies, if that word can even be used, it does not expire in the typical sense. Instead, it just becomes a form of light, or perhaps a photon, and returns to the luminol. Putting aside my scientist hat for a moment, it seems to me that this creature or entity may not be a living organism at all, but some manner of spiritual substance. Besides the fact that they serve as an incubators and nests for glow Pikmin, we know very little about the luminol's ecology. When nocturnal creatures die, a luminol can break them down into glow pellets through its strong dissolving enzymes. This matter, when condensed, becomes glow sap. One might assume glow sap is then an extremely dangerous substance, but it has hardly any negative effects. In fact, I've had it administered to me personally as a curative medicine to break down growing leaves. Luminols will only appear in places where an onion was located earlier in the day, and since they propagate glow Pikmin, one could surmise that they are rhizomes from those onions. Perhaps using its dissolving powers, it returns the nectar that supports the ecosystem back into the soil. Very, very interesting. It was great to learn all the Pikmin lore from all the creatures and stuff. I'm really sad that there's no Plasm Wraith. But I guess that's for the end. Because now, my name has been, and will be tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that, and always will be Pun Food. And thank you for watching this Pikmin 4 Let's Play. Goodbye!